God knows I hate to make a decision. I don't like it. I don't like reading it. I don't like being there. You are no longer privy to that conversation. There are people who study science, scientists, if you will. Do I have a convoluted situation for you? That book, my opinion, 5 stars. Hey, hi, hello, welcome or welcome back to the channel. My name is Amy and we are going to be starting a reading challenge. So, what inspired this challenge was the fact that I read 3 fantasy books, one after the other, and immediately I wanted to pick up yet another fantasy. And it got me thinking about how I could diversify the genres that I read, because I, like a lot of readers, tend to gravitate towards certain genres, and I have the best intentions of branching out and reading things that I don't normally read, but it never actually comes to fruition. So here we are. I am a proud Storygraph user, and so my first port of call was to find an exhaustive list of all the genres on Storygraph. Luckily for me, Odette Brethauer already had that idea, and she's created a whole challenge that you are more than welcome to join on Storygraph, called All the Genres on the Storygraph. I will link it down below for those who might be interested. But her list is exhaustive. There are 58 different genres I could read from, and of those 58, I have read 22 in 2025. I will add my graph here so that you can look at it, see what I gravitate towards, but that leaves me with 36 different genres to pick from. Of those 36, I have chosen 9. I've chosen biography, crime, dystopian, horror, music, nature, science, speculative fiction, and young adult. I have slapped it into the all-knowing wheel because God knows I hate to make a decision. We are going to spin for 3 different genres, and that will be the deciding factor on what I read for the next couple of weeks. So I had a look at my schedule, and I have a lot of work that is conducive to listening to an audiobook, so that is going to be my poison. That is how I'm going to complete this challenge. But before I can do that, I need to spin for my 3 genres. Okay, I am feeling irrationally nervous, so we're just going to go for it. Choice number 1 is... Oh, we got dystopian. Okay, I was really hoping for speculative fiction, but dystopian is good. I haven't read a dystopian since I was in high school, so this is probably a good pick for me. I am nervous but excited. Let's see what we get next. Crime. Okay, this is another one that I don't read, and it's really, really stupid because I am a slut for procedurals, but for some reason I just hate reading about crime. I find that the books drag on really, really long. The thing about a procedural is that you sit down, you're there for half an hour to 45 minutes, and it's done. Mystery solved. I struggle to be invested for a longer period of time, so I will see what I can do with this one. I have a couple of ideas. But we're just gonna go for the next spin. Science. Okay, So I put science on the list very tentatively because I am not a science, physics, mathematics, chemistry kind of gal. I am very much more an arts and language kind of gal. But I did read Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer a couple of years ago, and I loved it. And I feel like it does fall under the science category. So maybe we find another favorite. I plead guilty to the messy girl allegations. Please ignore the background. This is just what it looks like when I start working on something. I am here to tell you that I've started my first book. I was very scared because I decided to start with the crime genre because it is the one that intimidates me the most. It is the one that is the most truly out of my comfort zone. And so we're reading Blue Monday by Nikki French. Initially, I wanted to find a crime book that didn't read like a crime book, and for that, I went to Reddit, and Reddit recommended The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. However, I've already read that one, and I didn't feel inclined to continue with the series. I thought it was fine. I don't see why people like it as much as they do. I think it's just a genre thing, not really my style. So I decided to go back into my archives, and I'm going to be taking a recommendation from Jen Campbell. She is an author and a book reviewer. I have been watching her content for years, and my favorite thing about her is that she always finds books that I've never heard about, and we have interests that align. So it seemed to be a good move. In Blue Monday, we are following Frida Klein. Frida Klein is a psychotherapist, and she gets this patient, and this patient has these very vivid dreams of a young boy whose description matches a young boy who was not so long ago abducted. And so she wants to go to the police, but she isn't entirely sure if they'll take her seriously. And from what I can tell, given what the blurb has said, I think she takes matters into her own hands. I don't know, I'm not there yet. I've read about 20% of the book, and we have some pros, we have some cons. Pros, I really like that we're not really getting the perspective of anyone in law enforcement, because I haven't read much crime, but the crime that I have read, the police officer / detective POVs always kind of feel the same to me. I struggle, and they get muddy, and I tend to get bored. So the fact that we are not following that perspective excites me. But the things that I am feeling a little anxious about is every now and then we get a chapter from the abductor's perspective, and it makes me so uncomfy. I don't like it. I don't like reading it. I don't like being there. So that is something I have to contend with. And number two, I'm a little worried that she is a psychotherapist and that the criminal is just going to be someone who's mentally ill. I struggle with that narrative because I myself am bipolar. And so I struggle with the villainy of mental illnesses, and it is something that really rubs me up the wrong way. It hasn't happened. It might not happen. It is just a natural conclusion that this book could take. And if that is the case, I'm very afraid that I'm not going to enjoy my time here. But we'll see. Only time will tell. So far, I'm about 20% of the way into the book. I don't know too much about what's going on. As far as I'm aware, the abduction of Matthew, the little boy, has kind of been mentioned in passing, but we haven't really focused on it yet. Most of the information I've given you is just straight off of the blurb, but I'll let you know how I go, and I'll check in with you a little bit later. Hello, it is Thursday, and we are all smiles because not only has spring sprung, but my friend who I play Stardew Valley with is in town, and I knew she was going to be in town, and so we made plans to see one another, but I thought it was going to be coffee, and I checked in with her last night. We had a little bit of a chat, and it turns out we're having a slumber party. She is sleeping over, and I get to host, and I am thrilled. So I need to confirm plans. I've asked her if she would like me to plan something out and about, or if she'd like to stay in, and once those plans are confirmed, we need to do some shopping depending on what it is we're going to do. Either way, I need to prepare her room and all of that good stuff, but I am checking in to tell you that number one, I filmed an update for this video, and I, for the life of me, can't find it. So whatever was said was said. I'm so sorry. You are no longer privy to that conversation. But number two, I finished Blue Monday by Nikki French. And I was so correct in the fact that I did not like this genre. So I I want to read out of my comfort zone, and I think I try about once or twice a year to read a crime book because everybody loves crime novels. It is such a popular genre, and I keep thinking that, like, this time it will be different. This time it was, in fact, exactly the same, and I still didn't like the book. So, here is my breakdown, my final thoughts. Number one, the characters were a bit lackluster. I didn't really care about anyone. I found Nikki French, our protagonist, not Nikki French, that's the author. I found Frida Klein, our protagonist, to be forgettable. And it's not necessarily that she was written badly, it's just I don't really know anything more about her other than she's a psychotherapist and she's good at her job. That's kind of like the only personality traits I got. The detective character, while we didn't get his perspective, we did get to interact with him, and he was written like every other detective I've ever read in a crime novel ever. He was grumpy and cynical and having a hard time with his personal relationships because he keeps prioritizing the job over his family, etc., etc., etc. And so the characters themselves, I just didn't find very appealing, or I wasn't drawn to them in any way, shape, or form. Then there was the mystery itself. I figured it out at about the 60% mark, not because I'm smart, just because it was right there, so I don't feel like it was particularly satisfying for me. There was a twist at the end that I didn't see coming. In hindsight, I probably should have seen it coming, but that didn't make it any better of a twist. It was just one of those things where I couldn't suspend my disbelief and actually believe that the thing that happened. You know what I mean? Because it was so unrealistic and a little bit crazy. So I'm not entirely sure that had the effect it was supposed to have on me. I will say I am very happy that the criminal in question was not just someone who was mentally ill. I'm really glad it strayed away from that kind of trope, which was nice. But I think that is probably the only positive thing I have to say about my reading experience overall. We got the perspective of our abductor as well as the little boy who's been abducted, and I know that the point of these scenes is to make you uncomfortable. And I can know that and be aware of that and still be uncomfortable and hate feeling uncomfortable. It's just not something I am trying to go for in my reading experience. It's not a discomfort that comes with growth. I don't mind feeling discomfortable. I don't mind feeling uncomfortable or disquieted if I am learning something new or challenging a worldview that I have. But discomfort for the sake of it just is not something that I personally enjoy reading. Having said all of that, we are moving on to our next genre, which is science, and I am so stoked. I'm going to be reading Forest Euphoria, The Abounding Queerness of Nature by Dr. Patricia Onaniwu Kaishan. And I am so stoked because in this book we talk about science and we talk about how Dr. Kaishan has found science, but it's also written as part memoir. And so we're going to be exploring ideas of neurodivergency and of queerness. And so it sounds like the perfect read for me. I don't feel like it's cheating. I feel like it is still completing the prompt. Science is one of the tags/categories that it is labeled under. It's just something that I'm really looking forward to. And after the disappointment of the last book, I'm really not mad about it. I also went and checked reviews last night because I was curious, and it has a 4.2 rating, which is unheard of when it comes to nonfiction because not a lot of people read it. And some of the reviewers said that it had the same kind of feeling and tone as Braiding Sweetgrass, which has only made me more excited. Needless to say, expectations are very high. I am hoping that this is going to be a new favorite. If it is anything like Braiding Sweetgrass, it will be. But I guess what I have to do is actually read it, find out, and let you know. So that is what we are going to do. I will be able to give you a more comprehensive idea of what this book is about once I start reading it. So for now, this is the update. We haven't updated this vlog in a hot minute. So hey, hi, hello. Today is Tuesday. My friend is back home. She's safe, she's sound, but she did spend a little time with us here and we had the best time. We went to the arcade. I learned that I don't suck at air hockey. So to that one guy who told me I sucked at air hockey 4 years ago, I would just like to let you know that you are in fact incorrect and you can never take that away from me ever again, because I know I don't suck now, which is nice. Also on Sunday, my friend Megan, who is a photographer, asked John and I if we would be part of a photo shoot for her portfolio, and we said yes, of course, naturally. And immediately after saying yes, I started panicking because I don't know how to pose for photos. I feel like in order to take a good posed photo, you need to be cool and mysterious, and I feel like I'm neither of those things. It's also just there is something really stressful about somebody else taking your photo. I can take my photo because I can delete it and no one else has to see it. John can take my photo because he doesn't count. He knows what I like. He also takes really good photos, if I might say so myself. He took a little test photo of me before the photo shoot so that I could see how I was coming across because I'm anxious. And it's actually really cute, really proud of him. So, anyway, we had this photo shoot, and I think Megan did such a good job. I have no idea how the actual photos look, but I do know that we felt really cool, calm, and comfortable the entire time. We had so much fun, and it was just really cool to see her in her professional element. So, more bring your friends to work days. I would love to petition that, because I have friends who I've known for years and I can tell you their job title, but what they actually do at work, beyond me, mystery. I also started reading Forest Euphoria, and we have some feelings. So, number one, I initially said I wanted this book to remind me of Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and it does, because it is very memoir leaning. It is also about an individual and how they found science and how science has impacted their lives and how their beliefs shape the science that they do, and that aspect of it is very cool. However, I feel like I didn't actually want it to remind me of Braiding Sweetgrass, because now that it has, I feel like I'm comparing the two the whole time, and that just feels like I'm not giving this book a fair shot because I'm measuring it up to something I really, really, really loved. And so it's a lot of pressure for this book to perform in my head. So I need to go tackle those feelings. But something that I do like about the book is that we're talking about the social implications of science, and we're talking about how science is supposedly objective, but because there are people who study science, scientists, if you will, they come with their own inherent biases, and they reflect the biases that are apparent in the societies that they are part of. And so, loving that discussion, think that's great. I also think that it's really, really cool to learn about the ways in which gender, as we would perceive it, is a lot more fluid in nature than science would have you believe. And so I really respect that, and I think this could be a really affirming read for someone who might be struggling with their sexual identity and or gender expression. So if that sounds like someone you know, maybe recommend them this book. I think they might enjoy it. I also feel like these kinds of books are treading a very fine line. When you're writing a scientific book, you can do full facts and no one would be confused. It's science, it would be fine. And when you're writing a memoir, you can just go full events and that would be fine. But when you're blending the two, there is kind of something that needs to give at some point, and you have to link them together very specifically for it to make sense. And I'm not entirely sure that I feel that way all of the time. Some of the time I feel like I know exactly what's going on, but other times, like in the very beginning of the book, for instance, our author says that they have an amphibious existence, and I know that now it means that they don't feel like they fit into any of the boxes or any of the categories that they should fit into as a human being. But it also still has me a little bit confused because I'm not entirely sure what an amphibious existence means. Maybe I will know by the end of the book, but I feel like that was just a line that was dropped and we never came back to it again. So I do think that I'm not going to like this as much as Braiding Sweetgrass, but I am still having a really good time. So that is the book update. I think I need to go do some work because it's Tuesday. I don't know how Monday slipped away from me like it did, but it did. It's gone now. So I need to go focus. But I will let you know if I've read anything more or if I have anything more to update you on. Happy Wednesday! Do I have a convoluted situation for you? So initially I picked this book up and I was like, hey, this sounds like it could remind me of Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Then I started reading it and I wasn't really enjoying it all that much because while it did remind me of Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, it wasn't enough. And then I decided that, okay, we're being a little bit silly and a little bit pedantic. There is no need for this book to be Braiding Sweetgrass or to have the effect on me that Braiding Sweetgrass had. And so I tried to stop comparing the two. Immediately, I start having a better time. Now I'm having such a good time that I'm like, it kind of reminds me of Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I'm not saying it's logical, I'm just saying that's how I feel. So it's going great. I am thinking that this is potentially going to be a 5-star read. It might be a new favorite, which we are very excited for. So what am I enjoying about this book? Great question. I would love to tell you. So I am really enjoying the respect with which the author is talking about the natural world. The way in which these stories and facts are shared makes the knowledge feel very intimate. And much like Braiding Sweetgrass, there is a discussion about how we are not separate from the natural world, but we are inherently a part of the natural world. And so it would serve us a whole lot better to just be cooperative with the natural world. So I am really enjoying that aspect and element of it. We are talking about naming things in nature, not to have authority over them, but to know them. And that I thought was really sick. And then we're also tackling the supremacy bias that human beings seem to have and that science has kind of suggested and put forward and championed. And we're kind of just talking about how and why that is not the case. And I really fuck with that idea too. So all in all, having a really good time. Ideally, I would like to finish it today. I think I have about 2 hours left, which is totally doable. But I'm gonna go do that. Hello there, it is Thursday, and I did in fact manage to finish Forest Euphoria, The Abounding Queerness of Nature by Dr. Patricia Onaniwu Kaishan. I had such a good time with this book. That book, my opinion, 5 stars. I loved it. And I know that initially I wasn't really gelling with the book, and that was 10,000% my fault. This is the biggest disclaimer. That was on me. But once I think lowered my expectations, it was conversely able to meet the expectations that I had previously set. And I am just so impressed by this book. I thought it was incredibly accessible. I never felt the need to go Google something. I never felt stupid. I think that the way that Dr. Kaishan presents the arguments within the book just makes sense. I feel like it's very easy to follow, which I always appreciate very much. I also think that this book is incredibly important and relevant. With the rise of conservative values, I think it is just so necessary to have a more holistic view of the kind of information that you are exposed to. I think that is particularly true for science, because I think that science is kind of intimidating to people who don't study it. I think that a lot of the resources that you can find are incredibly academic, and the fact that this one was just so easy to understand was phenomenal. It's also important because we talk about sex and we talk about gender and we challenge heteronormativity within this book. We talk about how gender is a lot more fluid than science would have you believe, and Dr. Patricia Onaniwu Kaishan presents these wonderful examples of the ways in which gender fluidity actually does appear in the natural world, and that in itself kind of challenges the stigma that it is deviant and or abnormal, and I think that that is so important. We've touched on this. I'm going to touch on it again. I really enjoyed how we acknowledged that sociopolitics and science don't exist in a vacuum. There are in fact Venn diagrams that overlap, and just having a practical example of how that works and what that means and how it impacts people and the information that we take in and kind of regard as fact is incredibly helpful. So I think that if you have a conservative in your life that you would like to piss off, maybe pick up this book. I think it'll do the trick. But also, all jokes aside, very important read. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Now that I'm done gushing at you, the next book that we are going to be reading falls under the dystopian category. We are going to be reading I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harquin. And I don't know very much about this book. I know we have a bunker. I know there are 39 women in said bunker. I know that they are guarded. I don't know why. I know that they also don't know why. And I think everything kind of shifts when a younger woman is introduced to this bunker. She is woman number 40 in said hellscape, and she holds the key to escape and also survival. That is how I understood the blurb, but I could be wrong. I too am fallible. So I'm gonna go read, and then I will let you know how it goes. Good morning. We have yet another time jump. It is September 16th. We took a little break from filming because John and I both got horrendously sick. And so we haven't been doing much of anything, but I did do some reading. I am 52% of the way through I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, and it's okay. It's not my favorite dystopian I've ever read. I much prefer settings like Chain Gang All Stars, and I was thinking about why I prefer it, and I do think that knowing why the world got to the state that it is in and how those mechanisms work are important for me in a dystopian. This book doesn't have that. And so it is a much more open-ended kind of narrative, which works great for some people, but I think I'm just too nosy. So I did make a mistake. My copy came with an introduction, and I made the mistake of reading the introduction, and I have such a pet peeve towards introductions that spoil the book. So just a heads up, if you do have a copy with an introduction, skip the introduction, maybe, because I now feel like my intrigue isn't as high as it could be because I know a couple of the events that take place within the book, and that I find a little bit frustrating. As for our narrator, I do find her a little bit repetitive. So she has a very interesting situational relationship to the events and the bunker and the women in said bunker, because she is the youngest of the group. And so she doesn't remember life before the bunker, whereas the other women kind of do. And it is just, she points that out a lot, to the point where I feel like it's no longer necessary. We get it. But it does mean that she has a completely different take on the events that are taking place in the book to everyone else, and that does create tension and intrigue. In a way that is pretty cool. I think it also does open up a lot of discussions about what makes us human and how we adapt to really heinous circumstances, because these women are trapped in a bunker. There are men that are guarding them at all times, and still they have this idea of normal. They have these routines that they follow that makes everything feel more bearable, and I think that that is a really cool discussion. I do think that if you are someone who isn't a fan of open-ended situations, this book might not be for you. I'm 52% of the way through, and I'm still not entirely sure how this dystopian setting happened, how it took place. And I do think that that's fine for this book, because we aren't really talking about how the world got this way, we're talking about how people deal with it. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say about the book. I have about 2.5 hours left on audio, so I'm going to go make tea. I have to go to the pharmacy today, but I think in and around those tasks, I definitely have enough time to finish it. So we can come back and discuss final thoughts. See you then. I did it. I finished I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, and I didn't like it. Which feels silly because everyone else apparently loved it. So I read a couple of reviews just to see what it was I was missing, and I don't know if I was missing anything. I just think it didn't hit me like that, if that makes sense. So the problem I had with this book was that it felt very one-sided, because we're asking two brands of questions within this book. We're asking big philosophical questions like, what is the meaning of life? What does it mean to be human? How do you contribute to a community? And then other questions are very plot-driven, like, why are we here? What happened? Stuff like that. And I feel like we're never given any answers to those questions. And I know that it's this like meta thing where it's like completely intentional, because our main character also has a lot of questions and doesn't necessarily get answers to those questions. And so you and the main character are kind of in the same boat, and you have to figure everything out and think of the answers yourself. But I just didn't appreciate it, because when we're talking about things like what does it mean to be a human being, we've all had that thought before. We've all considered it at some stage, and so it doesn't feel like it's a new question. These circumstances might be new, and that is maybe where the newness of that question is supposed to stem from. But I just couldn't find myself buying into it, and I felt like I was doing a lot of work. I was having to think of the answers to these things and theorize,
And some people might really like that. Some people might really like trying to piece together what happened from minimal information, but I found it kind of frustrating, to be honest. And so I just didn't like it very much. I thought that the character building was also very two-dimensional. They didn't feel like real people to me, and I know that we are asking the question of what does it mean to be human, and at what point do you stop being human? How much grief can a human endure? So I get it, the characters didn't necessarily have to be painted very vividly for it to make sense within the concept, but it felt very bland. Everything felt very bland. And I thought the first half was repetitive. Oh my goodness, the second half is worse. There is so much counting. I don't personally feel we needed that much counting. That's just my take. But I digress. I didn't like it very much. And with that, our experiment has come to an end. I picked up 3 different genres I had not read for the entirety of 2025, and I gave them all a shot. I do feel like I diversified my reading as much as I didn't like 2 of the books. I feel like I did spend a lot of time reading something completely different, and that was reinvigorating in its own way. I do think I would do this again. I think that branching out and reading different genres is a good thing. I think it's good practice. I also feel like I didn't lose anything as much as I didn't enjoy 2 of the books. I enjoyed one so much, I feel like it makes up for the other 2. And so I think I will probably be doing this again at some stage. So if you have any genres you would like me to read, please do let me know below. And then I will see you in the next one. Bye.